Welcome back. New labour laws are pushing up costs for local businesses and causing companies to rethink pay packages and benefit schemes. Still, the likely winners of all these new regulations are the employees, as they give job seekers more flexibility when changing jobs. Here to talk about all these legal issues is Vanessa Abernethy, partner at law firm Simmons Simmons. Hi Vanessa, welcome to the show. Tell us about all these new labour laws that came into effect on January 1st. What changed?
Sure, Linda, it's been very interesting. We've seen a lot of changes being put out by the Ministry of Labour just very recently. In particular, we've seen changes to the visa and sponsorship regimes. Those changes are quite varied. For example, it's now more straightforward for an employee to change from one job to another. There's no longer requirements in some circumstances for a no objection letter, and there will be more limited use of the ban situation that we used to get when an employee was changing jobs. The Ministry of Labour now are also able to issue part-time visas to enable people to work simultaneously across two jobs, and also short-term visas. The other very interesting change that we've seen is the introduction of some minimum wage laws. Those minimum wage laws will effectively require employers to pay highly educated staff a higher amount per month to meet the minimum wage requirement. So we were particularly interested when those laws came out.
How much would that be for a master's degree, for instance?
So if you've got a degree of any kind, a bachelor's or above, the minimum wage from the 1st of January is now 12,000 dirhams per month.
Okay. Has it become easier for employees to switch from one job to the next one?
I would say for some employees, definitely. The new laws on transfer of visas now say that provided you've been working for your current employer for a minimum of 2 years and you leave the employment by mutual consent, that you are now able to transfer your visa to another employer and you don't get a ban from working in the UAE, which used to be a 6-month ban, and you no longer require a no objection certificate.
How can employees defend themselves should their employer not comply by the new laws?
Nothing in that regard has changed. What an employee in that situation should always do is go down to the Ministry of Labour. Normally the Ministry of Labour would ask to see the labour card so that you can prove that you're employed by the person that you've got the dispute against. You then lodge some details about your complaint, and the Ministry of Labour will then call the employer in so that you can have a meeting and try to resolve it.
It's been reported that these new labour laws cost businesses more. How is that?
I suspect that the reason this has been seen in the media is that people are probably referring to the minimum wage laws, because we're now in a situation from the 1st of January where all employers will need to evaluate their current workforce and assess whether some of their lower paid workers may perhaps fall into a higher education bracket and therefore require a substantial increase in their monthly wages. It's interesting to see that we also now have some very codified and set down fines for people that aren't compliant with the new laws. So, for example, if you choose not to comply with the minimum wage laws, there is now the ability for the Ministry of Labour to fine you. So that could potentially cost some employers a lot of money.
Will that affect hiring within companies?
It would be interesting to see. I suspect what it means administratively is that whenever an employer from now on going forward is going to hire anybody, they're going to need to ascertain quite carefully whether the person has a degree or a high school graduate or even a diploma, to ascertain whether the job they're planning to place them in is going to require them to pay a higher wage. Now, there's one other thing that may follow from this that I'm not sure if the Ministry of Labour has thought about, which is that we're now in a situation where some employers may refuse to employ somebody who's got a degree for a lower paying job so that they can avoid the minimum wage requirements.
We hear that some employers say it's still all too difficult, these labour laws, and that it's too restrictive to hire and fire people. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure where that comment's coming from. My opinion is that the new laws have gone some way towards making that easier, particularly with the visa transfer laws. It is possible that people are thinking about the administrative process of sponsoring staff. At the moment, to sponsor staff for a work permit when they enter the UAE, a lot of documentation is required, and some of that needs to be notarised and authenticated for use in the UAE. I'm not certain that we're going to see that change in the near future, and I think what the Ministry has done in this round of changes is very positive.
Thank you very much for coming in today. Have a good day.
Thanks, Linda.
Well, that's it from the business desk. Up next, Laura Buckwell is back with the news.